Um, This is a meeting of the Consolidated Commission on Utilities. It was scheduled for 12 noon. I have 12:31 on my clock. And for the record, those present so far are Commissioner Simon Sanchez, let me start that again. Are you on now? Are we streaming, guys? Are we streaming? Okay. This is a meeting of the Consolidated Commission on Utilities. We call this meeting for 12 noon. The clock is 12:31, so we're going to start. For the record, those commissioners who are in the room right now are Commissioner Simon Sanchez, Commissioner Judy Gutherds, and myself. And Commissioner Francis Santos is on the video screen with us. He is in the building, but he's just at another part of the building. Commissioner Mike Limchaco is on his way in. Okay, so with that, I hereby call this meeting to order. We have approval of minutes. Could we deal with that?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
We have 2 minutes, by the way. The minutes for October 29, 2019. Move.
Move.
Second, subject to written correction?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye.
Motion carries, four ayes. Next meeting minutes is the minutes of, what's the date, Joyce, on that minutes? October 29th, what's the next date? August 29th.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
So move, second? Second. Any further discussion? No further discussion. All those signify by raising your right hand. Aye. Okay. Minutes are approved, 4 votes. Moving right along. Do we have anybody signing in for public comment? No? Nobody signed in? Okay. Moving right along. Let's go straight to GPA. Okay. Don, the floor is yours. Okay.
First one being, basically for authorizing us to enter the years of, various,
We're delayed. We're trying to get the microphone for our general managers to be on.
1, 2, 3. Is that good?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Again, Mr. Chair, just very briefly, this is a contract for the repair of various facilities on the islands of Rizal, Typhoon, Bangkok. We had 2 bidders come in. The lowest bidder is Eon Corporation for about 1.166. And then the project's 180 days for completion. And I'm requesting the CCU's approval in consideration that my GM authority is 1 million. So I require your approval for this contract so that we can proceed. And again, 60% of the cost is reimbursable. The rest is coming from our CIP funds.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve, subject to discussion.
Okay. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Sanchez. Any questions by any members? This is on the move to do some work that was related to a disaster that we had experienced during Typhoon Mangkhut, right, John?
That's correct.
And therefore, we can use our self-insurance money but 60% of the amount is reimbursable from FEMA, so we will get 60% back. And the total amount is $1,166,029.12 for the record. John, I have a slight question. I thought we had increased your authority for approving of contracts higher than $1 million, or no?
No,
It's only 1 million?
up to
Okay.
1 million.
No. Okay, no problem. Just check. Okay, so that's the proposal before the body. Any further discussion? No? No discussion? Then all those in favor signify by raising your hand. Okay, unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving right along.
Thank you,
John?
Mr. Chair. Resolution 2020-08. This is related to the Levelized Energy Adjustment Clause. It is authorized that by the PUC that we expect the LEAC clause to have a change of about $2 million during the 6-month period that we can file an interim adjustment. Again, the last adjustment was made by the PUC effective February 1st, 2020 up to July 31st, and that LEAC rate was 13.447 cents a kilowatt hour. And whereas the market price of fuel oil that was used in the initial filing was about $59.14 on the average of the inventory and the uses that we had on the projected procurement. So again, our projections now indicate that this could be as low as $53.42 per barrel on the average. Therefore, what we have before you is first of all, GPA will cover the current under recovery of about $1 million from under recovery. And using the Morgan Stanley forward pricing, which is utilized by the PUC protocol, we project that we can reduce the LEAC to 0.110039 cents per kilowatt hour, or 18.2% decrease from the current LEAC rate. So I have a brief presentation, Mr. Chair, and then
Sure.
from there, consideration. So again, the LEAC update in terms of pricing, we purchased fuel in March.
Okay.
Before that, the fuel was about $55 a barrel. We purchased fuel in March in the tanks now for about $51.75.
Okay.
Then the market crashed. The reduction, the fuel oil pricing dropping because of the oil war between Saudi Arabia and Russia, and of course the coronavirus that is here today. So our forward projection, looking forward using the protocol of Morgan Stanley projection, it looks like we placed the order for April delivery, and that we believe is coming in about $37.62 a barrel. And then by next, this is the updated Morgan Stanley projections that we are looking forward, and again lower fuel cost per barrel moving forward over the next months, no? And again, the cost has dropped, whether it's stabilized and all of that, that's still yet to be seen. However, we rely on projections, that's Morgan Stanley, no? Next. Again, in terms of fuel cost, we've gone from fiscal year 2014 total 275 million to as low, if you recall, FY 2016 when oil we came down to a LEAC of about 8.8 cents, and since then we've been oil prices have been rising all the way up through 2019, and here we are in fiscal year 2020. The class has developed, which is again to the benefit of our ratepayers. Next. In terms of the LEAC, again, in 2018, we had to raise the LEAC all the way up to 0.154 per kilowatt hour. We actually reached an under recovery of about $16 million, fronting, from cash to be able to mitigate mitigate the rising fuel costs, and so that we were able to hold the LEAC all the way up to February at 15.4, where we subsequently made the request for a drop to 13.4, which is what you see here next. So again, in terms of the residential bill, it went up to about 22 point. It actually ended up to today's with the LEAC adjustment on February 1st to be about 22. 0.9 cents, 0.229 cents per kilowatt hour for the total bill for an average residential customer of about 1,000 kilowatt hours. So again, here's the history of the LEAC. Our base rate, of course, as you can see, has not changed. Everything is really related to LEAC. Next. Here's the under recovery history, and again, I'll just point to you that the under recovery ending January 31st was 2.1 million, and we have not posted yet the under recovery for February to yourselves, but it's at $1 million, about $1 million. So again, we recovered more. So we're basically almost almost recovered, and that $1 million is in the projection to be recovered over this over this current year. Next. Again, this is just a graph showing you the sequence all through this all through this fiscal year. Next. And here's the breakdown as to how we calculate the LEAC factor. As you can see here, it's 11.0339 for the residential consumer. Next. And that actually translates to an 18.2% drop in the LEAC rate, and an overall, on an average residential customer, 10.7% drop on their total bill for an estimated 1,000 kilowatt hour. So this is in addition to the 7% that was dropped in February. So the total drop since February 1st, if this is approved,
If this is approved, yeah.
will be about
18.6. 18.6.
Yeah.
In the total bill, an 18.6% reduction in the total bill.
So again, next. So again, Mr. Chair, that's the recommendation.
There's the motion.
To file to the PUC for petition, and in hopes the PUC is meeting next week Thursday, and we've given some forewarning that this is what we're trying to do. So hopefully it could still be addressed in their meeting.
Okay.
I'm sorry, next week Thursday. I apologize.
This week, Thursday.
This week Thursday.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry.
Yes, Commissioner
I
Lopez.
would move to approve the proposed adjustment in the LEAC presented by management.
This is resolution.
Yeah, the resolution, I'm sorry, resolution 2020-08.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Sanchez. Okay, discussion. Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, GPA team. We anticipated that this could happen. Can't think of a better time to pass these savings on to our ratepayers. As you said earlier, the decrease on February 1st, meters right after February 1st, that was granted earlier this year, plus this proposal, if it's granted by the PUC, it's a cumulative decrease on the total bill of about 18.6% since basically December 31st. The only thing I'd like to ask management to continue to monitor, these are uncertain times. If it appears that we can lower this further in the future, to take a look at that. Now it's your most educated guess based on projections from Morgan Stanley. It is a significant decrease in the portion of the bill and in the total bill. pass it and get it to the PUC so we can benefit our ratepayers when they really need it.
Okay, any other comment?
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman, I know the public is looking towards this, and, these are very unpredictable times, and a lot of people are hurting who've been laid off from work, not certain if they will be able to go back to work. The public utility, we have a responsibility in every way possible of ensuring that our ratepayers benefit from whatever decrease in operational costs of any kind that we can pass along to them. And I want to commend our management for always focusing on these opportunities. Thank you.
Commissioner Chao.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. John, I might have missed it. I see on your presentation that the LEAC under recovery balances as of January of this month, or January of this year, is at 2.1 million. So based on the proposed resolution reduction, how will that impact the recovery of this under recovery? When are you projecting that to happen?
Oh, we've even with the 11 cents a kilowatt hour through this layup period, the under recovery will be equal to zero. We would have recovered everything by the end of July 31st.
July 31st.
Yeah. So this will now true up. This will now true up, what we have fronted and stuff. So
It's pretty good.
and still be able to drop the LEAC by as much as that. A total of 18% on the total bill if you count also the February 1st drop.
So if fuel prices continue to drop and our purchases are less than projected, we would recover that potentially sooner than July.
Yeah. Based on what we projected, which we tend to try to be conservative, we will recover everything and still drop it. And then again, if we're getting close to the bottom of the barrel, no, in terms of the fuel drop. Remember, the crude was at about $55 a barrel when we were doing the February 1st adjustment. That's dropped now to about $20-some a barrel. No, but that's the crude price, and then the other product prices are different, or there's a relationship between all of that. But you see, we're already at $20. They can maybe go to 10, but it's gonna start punching up. So we don't know yet. The drop has really been the past 2 weeks, if you will. So hopefully over this period of time, it's just stabilized to where we're thinking it may be that we can get fuel in here at about $37 to $45 a barrel versus the $55 that we spend in January, and the 51 that we spend in February to bring the fuel here in March.
There's your 18%.
Yeah.
8 on 50.
John, maybe for the commission's perspective, maybe you or John Kim could explain that you're basing a lot of this on recommendations from, what is that, Bloomberg or Barclays? No,
Morgan Stanley.
Morgan Stanley. So this is
based our protocol with the PUC is to take like 5 days before a certain date and 5 days after. Based on that projection, then we use that to run the numbers with. And that's what we've done with this, which makes it, again, it complies with PUC protocol.
I just want to clarify that the data comes from Morgan Stanley.
That's
So this is not just something you do, you rely on data from major financial institutions.
I can only
That's all.
add on whether from my feeling or my
Perspective.
evaluation or my perspective that do I believe that this will hold, no?
Mhm.
And so I'm thinking that it's a fair estimate, no? And
Okay.
That's all I can add.
Okay. Is there any other commissioners that want to address? Okay, thank you. Are we ready for the question? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Aye. Raising your right hand. Commissioner Santos? Commissioner Santos, can you hear us? Commissioner Santos? Okay. Commissioner Santos? Okay. Unanimous, 5 votes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just have one other
Okay.
quick report, Mr. Chair. I won't go through, if the commission will, I've given the GM report, which is the typical scenarios. And if you want me to go through that, that's fine, but I would prefer just to go through the COVID, just to
think that
give
would be
you
very good.
a brief update on that, and then any questions you may have, and then take it from there, no? In terms of the COVID update, Mr. Chair, I wanted to get an idea of, the question is how far is our demand and production and everything is going to change, understanding with this the virus. So what I did is I took a December curve for a Monday and a February curve, which is before we had any impact here of shutdowns and anything, and then I took yesterday's curve, which is the red one. So as you can see, the shape of the curve has not really changed. There is if you see, there's a little bit of a gap here, a bigger gap, but it's not. Whatever the peak demand, the volumes consumed in the same days, about the same ratio. No? So therefore, this difference is about 8%. No? High. Demand is low. Yeah, because this is no, it just shifts. There's a shift from work to So it's a more and then
You don't have all those tourists consuming energy.
That's right.
Retail is shut down.
Yeah.
The business side is shut down.
Yeah,
Residential
so
part.
daytime, the schools, the commercials, even the military that because the commercials, their peak is really in the daytime. No? So that's what's happening.
For retail, yeah.
And then you're correct. Some of that energy shift to the people staying home. No? So what I'm seeing here now, I'm fairly confident that this is the curve you're going to be seeing. It's just that means that, and I expect this to probably drop some more to somewhere between the 10 to 15%. And that 10 to 15%, depending on how long this scenario lasts, will trend the same way because we are going to increase here in demand because it's the warmer one, and I like to inform our customers to keep an eye out on your consumption because we are now getting into the warmer part of the year, and the air conditioners are going to work harder and harder. So it's really consumption that's going to drive your costs, no? So again, I expect that to rise, but it's not going to be at the level that it was last year until we start recovering all of this. But
Plus
so
you just lowered the power bill, or with the PUCs, okay.
you
we
just lower
lowered
it
the
to
rate.
everybody. You lower it, so that would help everyone. But I think all of this, including demand side management programs and everything, is right sizing the island so that no matter what happens, really, we're not going to see a 20-30% drop or whatever because people need the energy, no? And if they right size, they're going to stay with this pattern. So I see us, and I hope I'm not wrong, but somewhere around 10 to 15%. So that's what we also looking at how we manage this, our expenses and everything moving forward. From here, and all that. So next, so here's the energy. Again, expect to drop. See here, this curve was moving up. And again, this is just for March. Compare 19 and versus 20. This is the curve. And normally, this will continue moving up this way, but it's going to drop here, and then it's going to move like this. So this is the first time I've seen 3,900,000 kilowatt hour usage in a day. But this is a weekend, of course. See, the low end here are weekends. So, but so that's your 10 to 10,
So you
10 projecting 10 to 15%.
So you really see the drop at peak because
That's-
that's tourism, there's no tourists. The overall demand is mellow, eight, maybe 10 to 15, depending on how long this lasts.
Yeah.
People are staying home. I mean, my company went home at 10 o'clock this morning, and so we're not, we're seeing it across the board. We got plenty of fuel. The generators are working. So the other issue, Mr. Chairman, that perhaps John and Miguel can talk about is, I know both had said they would extend no disconnections up to March 31st. The governor just extended.
Yeah, I have that.
So,
Next.
luckily you did it on your own. You don't need our permission.
Yes.
Just inform us on that,
Yep.
John.
So again, here's your kilowatt hours. Again, this dropping, and this is just from March to 24.
Okay.
So again, everything's consistent. The bottom of the day is about that much. Okay, I'm gonna move quickly, Mr. Chair. That's on the production side.
Yeah, let's just go to
Next.
the operation.
Again, these are the things that we're doing. Just happening. I won't go through everything, but next, I think like what the Commissioner Sanchez has mentioned, we have no disconnection ending March 31st, but of course the governor's doing a new executive order to April 14. So again, we're gonna extend no disconnection April 14. In addition to that, really there's late fees and stuff. Typically we're not waiving that. And we're giving every opportunity for people that really could pay their bills to go ahead and pay that so that they don't get,
Too far behind.
too far back. But more importantly, we are doing everything we can to provide service, and that includes critical service to everybody. It's critical that every home has power now, and we're doing our best. So I don't see that changing. We have some contingency plan. If this thing gets worse, we may bring in a certain group of operators and sequester them so that we make sure that they don't get sick, because there's only certain operators that can run Cabras 1 and 2, different things like that. So just to give you an idea, we are looking
You have plans.
further
You're doing your plans.
ahead, and we're looking actually 4 to 6 months ahead, trying to get ready for all of this. So we'll be out there. If your power goes out, we will respond. If no one's responding within the next half an hour, give us a call. In the first half an hour, we will basically, okay. So that's it, Mr. Chair. I mean, I
Okay.
can go through all of this, but
No,
we're doing various things. You can see to try, and only critical employees are, working through this period.
Okay. What we're going to do now is we're going to shift out and bring in the GWA people and let the GPA people. And at this time, I'd like to just acknowledge the hard work of our management and staff of both GPA and GWA. Unfortunately, they do such a good job that everybody forgets about them because the power is always on and the water is always flowing. But these are two essential services that are very important for our community. Especially at this time. So I want to commend both the management and staff of both GPA and GWA at this time while we're waiting for the GWA crew to come in so we can have that part of the meeting. But I want to commend everybody and keep up the good work. The other thing is I like the way the two general managers, go ahead, you can move out while GWA moves in. I like the way the two managers. This is one Guam, so
Thank you.
we're working with our government, with the governor and all of her staff to help our community during this trying times. So this is one government we're all trying to approach to serve our community, okay?
Including U.S. attorneys.
Yeah, okay,
Even his power bill is going to go down.
Yeah.
Even though he
Okay.
doesn't feel part of our community.
okay. So, just need the GWA people in. Come on. For the next step, right, GWA? Okay, Miguel, floor is yours. It's captured in the one, but it's not on the board books. That's why they passed out. But it is on that resolution.
Okay, if we're ready,
Ready,
we're
go.
gonna bypass the management report and just get
Yes.
to the issues for
Get to the issues.
decision, right?
We want to keep the meeting as short as possible.
Okay, so the first resolution up for your consideration is Resolution 17 FY 2020, and this is relative to adopting a debt service coverage ratio target of 1.5 times and a working capital reserve of 120 days of operating and maintenance expenses. You will recall that our policy on debt service coverage ratio, as previously augmented the net revenues with reserve amounts in order to meet the previous debt service coverage ratio target of 1.75 by the PUC. As we went through the rate case, was agreed to by the parties included seeking a unified policy on debt service coverage ratio, which is calculated in line with the indenture requirements to avoid the confusion that results from using a separate debt service coverage ratio calculation. So, as part of the approval for the 5-year rate plan, there were policy changes that were encouraged and both parties stipulate to work towards. So this resolution, if you adopt policy for target minimum debt service coverage ratio at 1.40 for the first 2 years, that was a revision that we made early this morning.
That's on page 3.
Yes.
Line 11.
To align with the the proposed order that we've put before the PUC, and also in year 3 of the current 5-year rate plan, FY 2022, increasing that minimum target to 1.50 to align with the financial planning goals and strategy that was already adopted by the CCU in our 2018 master plan update. So in that master plan update, we had indicated in the financial planning section of that volume 1 of that report a long-term strategy of 1.50 aligning with the indenture coverage calculation. And so what we have before you this morning includes a 1.40 for the first 2 years, and then a near-term goal of 1.50 to align with our adopted master plan financial strategy.
Is it on page 3? Is it on page 3? It's right there? Okay, just check.
The policy
That's
also
the update.
The policy also includes maintaining or setting a policy for the amount to retain in the reserve accounts of 120 days operating cash.
Working,
right?
Okay.
And the current amounts in those reserves amount to about 133 days. So we're going to keep amounts slightly less than what we have as our target.
So you're ahead of the target right now.
We are right now.
Okay.
Okay. If the CCU adopts this policy with regards to the debt service coverage ratio, it will align with what the PUC has been proposed as an order for the PUC's approval of our bond issuance. That references a 1.40 coverage, so this will align with that for the next 2 years. And there's also it also aligns with the stipulation requirements that in 2 years we will supplement any adjustments to the 5-year projections for rates with the studies that will be completed.
Okay, is there a motion from the commission?
So moved.
Moved, is there a second? Second, Commissioner Chaco. Miguel, why don't we ask if anybody has any questions? Does anybody? Sure.
Yeah, just quick, I just want to make sure, so our new debt service coverage ratio will be 1.4?
For 2 years.
For 2 years.
Target minimum debt service coverage ratio will be 1.4 for fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21.
And then we'll just review at that point thereafter.
Well, the way the language is written, in order to align with the long-term strategy that's already been adopted in the master plan on FY '22, the minimum target will be 1.55.
Okay.
And that's also included in the stipulated order that was, remember the stipulation?
The 1.4 is included in the stipulation.
Okay.
The 1.5 is to be determined after the next 2
No.
years, right?
The 1.5.
Is the 1.5 in the STIP also?
No, it's not, but in the negotiations in coming up with the STIP, PWA's position was our long-term financial plan and strategy already references 1.5. We can agree to the 1.4 for the first 2 years, but we want our long-term target to be the 1.5.
It's
and this is
adopted in the
consistent.
master plan.
Yes.
And we can visit that
And
we can visit that at a
any
later
time.
time.
At any time, yeah.
That's fine, that's fine. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there any other questions? No? If there are no other questions, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Just
What?
on the resolution, right?
Yeah.
Just one small change, I apologize, Mr. Chair. It's just on page 3, where we authorize the CFO to draw up to 500,000, subject to the approval of the GM for O&M. And I just want to insert a sentence that they shall inform the commission of the withdrawals. So we're not, it's still at $500,000.
Okay.
We're giving, this resolution gives permission for Miguel and Tolling to draw up to $500,000. And just to require, let's see, all we want is that they shall inform the commission within 30 days of any drawdown. How about that?
No objection.
Just real quick, because anything past $500,000, they have to come back to the
Okay.
full board. That's my thinking, is
Sure.
that we be informed.
I'm back, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry? You okay? I'm sorry, Francis.
Okay,
Commissioners.
so the discussion right now, commissioners, is the fact that based on the resolution as currently written, Commissioner Sanchez do you want to make an
Yeah,
amendment?
here we go, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
On page 3 of the resolution, line 22, after the word indenture, let's just add the sentence that the general manager shall inform the commission of any drawdowns under this authorization. And so that will apply to the first 500,000. He just has to inform us that they drew down. It's traditional in the
Okay.
legislature when the governor draws down. It's just informative.
Sure, okay. Are you making, no, just
So-
so we get this right, are you making this an amendment?
Proposing
Commissioner-
amendment to the resolution?
Yes,
prior?
okay.
Okay, so my proposed amendment on page 3, Mr. Chairman, line,
Send you the release to you directly. It's on its way. Okay, bye.
I'll get somebody
Now
else.
sorry,
Okay,
sorry.
no,
So the proposed
okay.
amendment is simply to add the sentence after the word indenture. The general manager shall inform the commission
CCU.
within 30 days of every withdrawal authorized.
Did you get that, Kelly?
Kelly, did you get that?
Okay,
Okay.
okay, go ahead, finish, and then we'll have him read it back. Within 30 days.
Yes.
Is there a second to that amendment?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Julie Gutierrez.
On
Do
the
you want to read
motion,
it, just a minute, do you want to read it back to us?
This is after the
Word indenture.
line 22, after the word indenture, period. The manager shall inform the CC within 30 days of any drawdowns.
Okay. That'll work.
Just a point of inquiry. Don't we have a larger amount, Miguel, that authorizes you to approve amounts up to $1 million already? So why would we change it? Why would we need you to come back?
Because we're now moving money out of a protected reserve into a working capital reserve, and it's just informing us, that's all.
Any thoughts, Miguel?
I don't have
We're not preventing it.
an objection to it being larger. I think the CFO drafted it that way just to give the CCU some level of comfort with regards to any withdrawals that we would make.
You
but-
want to make it larger?
No,
If you-
I'm
if you
not
want it to be-
suggesting we make it larger. What I'm suggesting is that we already authorize them to do transactions
Since of
larger
this kind
than
of
this
money.
amount of money.
Yeah,
Is it
so
something
why
that-
would we want to put it here
I'm
again?
just for
No,
discussion.
that's a good,
It
that's a
doesn't
good
matter.
point, that's a good point, I mean,
Yeah, so the rationale behind my proposal is just because it's working capital, it's been protected all these years, that you couldn't touch it, and yet we.
it hasn't been used in the past,
And
that's
has
correct.
been used, and
Okay,
yet, and
got it.
it's just really informing the commission that they've drawn down from the balance, that's all. And since they had set it at $500,000, I didn't want to.
Yeah, I think,
We
I
could have done
I
it
would,
at $500,000.
I would
I
agree.
just want to be informed that they drew down, that's all.
Yeah, and I would agree with Commissioner Sanchez, because basically what we're doing is we're setting days of cash, and our target is 100 days. We're at 130,
Target would be 120. We are
100?
currently at 133.
133 days. So it's just that if he's going to go below the 120 and
It has
start
to
to
draw.
draw down like $500,000 at a time,
Just let us know.
he would let us know, that's all.
That's the intent, Mr. Chairman.
And I think, I don't have a problem with that.
Anything past the $500,000, unless they want to change it down the
No,
road.
he
They're
said-
they're limiting themselves to
Yeah.
$500,000 before they tell us at all.
Right, and,
So we just
and
want
it's a
to-
good, and it's a good thing, because this is one particular fund that we want to be careful of. The 120 days is to keep us and to show we're liquid. Okay? So I'm just agreeing with Commissioner Sanchez's
Just
amendment.
information.
Okay, any further discussion? No? Okay, on the amendment to make that one change, and I'm not going to read it again, we all heard it. All those in favor of the amendment signify by raising your right hand. Right hand? Okay. Unanimous. Thank you.
On the motion.
On the main motion now,
As amended.
as amended, to approve resolution 17-FY 2020. All those in favor signify by by raising your right hand. Unanimous. Next resolution, Miguel?
I have a question.
Oh, on what?
Resolution 18?
Oh, wait, let him, go ahead, present the resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Next up is Resolution 18 FY 2020, and this is relative to policy for charging off receivables deemed uncollectible. In order to maintain good accounting practice and regulatory review, the accounts receivable, and to ensure allowance for doubtful accounts, appropriate to write off accounts that are deemed uncollectible. Don't write them off regularly, then the annual accounts receivable and related allowances become overstated. So what we're asking for is approval to write off uncollectible amounts that have exceeded the statute of limitations. Make it difficult for us to collect. We will still try to collect those amounts, and we'll have to write off anything that is written off would be, or anything that's collected after it's written off would be recorded as miscellaneous income.
Okay.
Yeah, Miguel, can you give us an idea how much money we're talking about and how far back these accounts would be
So
in
the
time?
statute of limitations is 4 years.
Uh-huh.
So to go that far back, and the current amount that we anticipate we would write off in order to correct this would be 1.8 million.
1.8 million, okay.
Now, this is, Miguel, just, does anybody want to make a motion, by the way?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Chalco. Just before you start, Miguel, this is to establish a policy regarding this, right? Because you don't currently have this in place?
We currently come to you every so often with a request to write it down. And what we're asking is for authorization to do it on a regular basis so that we are more in line with standard accounting.
Commissioner Sanchez, you have a
Yeah,
question?
so I guess that, Miguel got to the point, in the past, and it doesn't happen often, but from time to time, Miguel or the CFO will approach, the general manager will approach the CCU for periodic write-offs for all the reasons that are cited. I tend to like being informed about that and supporting the general manager in approving those write-offs, but I think Commissioner Guthert sort of highlighted the example of concern, she had to ask, well, what amount are you talking about? And just think from a disclosure point of view, and actually to also protect our general manager and CFO, that they did not make any arbitrary decisions, it was run past the board. I'm just curious why we need to change the policies. It's not like we do it 12 times a year with our 12 meetings. I can't remember the last one we did, Miguel, maybe it may have been even
Only
more.
done it once since I've been here.
Yeah, so since it's so rare, I mean, why change the practice at all? It would give you the stamp of approval that the board has signed, agreed to your write-off. I'm not sure what's broken, so why are we fixing it?
Okay.
That was my question.
I had a question, Miguel, on lines 20 to 21. Can you explain to me what that is? What is that whereas clause? What is it referring to?
On the first page, sir?
Yeah,
page
first
one.
page, line 20 and 21.
Employees to clear amounts owed, overpayments, and lost or damaged equipment.
Yeah.
I believe historically there may have been reflected in our books if an employee, for example, lost a bush cutter or something of that nature, then those amounts would be reflected as a receivable from the employee. And in instances where no recompense was made and it's beyond the statute of limitations, it still sits on our books as a receivable, and I think finance wants to be able to clear stuff like that out.
So how is it a receivable if they're on payroll? How come you're just not payroll deducting it?
I'm not sure that I know the answer to that question. So this is not something that I know of that's happening now. I think that these are just might be historical ones.
Okay.
I mean, I'd be concerned, like Commissioner Lippiaco, that if there's a rightful case that an employee has damaged, lost ratepayer assets, I'm concerned that we're not collecting it fast enough that it would turn into a write-off. Normally, you would collect it pretty quickly, and so that you're not writing it off.
Okay. And I'm not sure the circumstances either, but I, in my mind, could see a case where you had an employee who damaged a piece of property, maybe through his negligence, and then decided to just quit. And so therefore that would be a receivable against that person. We would still try to collect from that person outside of his employment. And therefore, I think what I would like to do is what Commissioner Sanchez did in the earlier resolution. I think what's really needed is information to the CCU. We need to be informed. These are unique occurrences. Some of these, like an employee who damages a piece of equipment, God forbid he gets in an accident, for example. I know that when any of our people get in an accident, there's an immediate test for DUI.
Yes.
So therefore, sometimes you never know. An employee might quit right then and there and say, okay, I quit. And then it becomes a collected item. And I think I would like to say, I would invite an amendment from the commission to amend this to say that the CCU would be informed when these occur, when any write-offs occur. Would you think of that? Involving anything, any of the write-offs. They don't you're right, they don't happen often, but then they do happen. And I think what we're talking about is getting it done and then just keeping us informed so that this is more an accounting thing. They're trying to keep their accounting in order, but we should be informed. So I like the idea of informing, but is there somebody who would like to make that amendment?
I'm sorry, if I may. The resolution includes a report to be filed to the board no later than November, for the regularly scheduled meeting in November. That would be after the close of this fiscal year. But would you prefer a different timing on that?
I don't know. No, go ahead. Commissioner
So, Mr.
Sanchez,
Chair, that's why I asked the question, are we fixing something that's not broken? I trust Miguel, I trust Tolling, but it does beg the question, what if they had a $7 million write-off they wanted to write off? They're not telling anybody. This board prides itself on full disclosure,
Plus we're liable.
and, in case we have a question, right? And whether it's an employee or a customer, write-offs are, you know, are important to the organization because other ratepayers are paying their bill, and some ratepayers, for all sorts of reasons, were unable to, and then we write it off. At least to, again, to protect management by having them at least inform their board. I'm not sure why we would need to do this at all. As Miguel points out, it's not like we do it even every fiscal year. We do it periodically. The few times we do it, it's just brought to the board. They say, hey, it's over 120 days old. It's $2 million. Let's approve it. But it's not a blanket authority. It's not we do it anytime we want, even if they inform us, because it's after the fact. Right? Maybe we want to look at who's getting written off. Right?
Yeah.
I just would rather protect
Okay.
management and ourselves to not grant automatic write-off authority to any of our management, but to just, they can request it of the commission on a periodic basis as needed. We know it doesn't occur that often. And then I've never heard the commission withhold approval
Yeah.
of a write-off.
Sure. Commissioner Mchako has a question, and then I have a follow-up to.
No, it's just more of a comment. You know, obviously, I think the resolution was drafted such that it's more of a policy, right? Because the CC doesn't want to be involved in determining what gets written off and what shouldn't be written off. But prior to that, I mean, we're reviewing this stuff every month on receivables. We see what's aging. So, is that correct, Miguel? Is that you're looking to say?
For government, though.
Yes, that's correct. You are seeing the financials every month. We provide a list of an aging report in the financial statements that we provide every month. So that information is conveyed. I don't know that it's to the level of detail that would necessarily be the same as what we would provide you in the report that's required by this resolution. But we could add additional detail to monthly reporting to align with that if that's the pleasure of the board.
I think we do currently, I think our current practice, and I could be wrong, is the fact that we highlight our government of Guam receivables, because we had a problem with them specifically in GPA a long time ago, so we were very sensitive to that.
Plus, that's public record.
And it's public record, so that's why we do that. Now, the other receivables from our other ratepayers is, you know, is not public record. I'd like to respond though, because Tulling's not here, but the limited knowledge of accounting that I have a little bit of accounting knowledge, says that I think what you're establishing is a policy, so that when the auditors come in, they say you have a policy for this and a policy for that. There's a policy on write-offs, and that's what I think this is. If Tulling were here, she could answer.
Right, so it's a change in policy. They're proposing a change.
Well, it's an institution of a policy, and it's taking an unwritten policy and writing it down. In other words, you're right. We had a common practice, and the common practice is not written down anywhere. It's just a common practice. And I think for according to APPA, and I'm not that good. I'm not a certified public accountant. I did do 2 years graduate work in accounting. APPA, the accounting requirements are such that you should have some sort of policy. And I think this is what this is.
Yeah.
And I think if you want to make it, every time it happens, we get informed right away instead of November, then I'm open to
Make
that.
that small amendment.
But, you know, I think that's the genesis of this.
And just to advise that the CFO is attending via the live stream, so she's watching, and her comments. And it's more of a management process. If we don't do it regularly, annually, it gets large, and we can try to do this more often. But the policies are necessary for auditing purposes, and it supports the efficient closing of our books and auditing of our financials.
Sure.
That's good.
So Commissioner Sanchez.
Yeah, so I appreciate that, but that just means, it also could mean that you simply tell the commission in the proper time that you need to do it, so you comply with the audit requirements, saying, hey, it's time to write off X, you submit it to us, and we at least are aware of it. And so I appreciate what the chairman says. This is a change in policy. All I'm saying is, I kind of like the old policy where from time to time, management, either the GM or the CFO, would approach the CCU and say, I wish to write off X. There's a brief summary. It is not as, it doesn't need to be detailed. It's never, it cannot be detailed for individual accounts. It can be detailed for government accounts, although we would always say, why haven't you collected from the government, right? But just as a practice, and again, I think it protects the general manager and the CFO from being accused of arbitrarily writing off accounts
Yeah,
that were not reviewed by anybody else.
I think the policy is good, that you write things down when, you know, if there should be a policy, it should be written, it shouldn't be an unwritten policy. So that's good. I think that's why I invited you to make an amendment that they inform us prior to or
Acting.
immediately after, whatever you think is appropriate.
So how about this, Mr. Chairman, to speed up the meeting? If that's the spirit of the commission, we could just ask management to rewrite this, bring it back to us next month, and put in the policy
Okay,
that says you'll
that's fine.
inform us.
That's
right?
fine.
And that way
It's
we can
tabled until next month.
right,
No problem.
table it, and I think you got to.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. We'll table it until next month, but we still have some questions. Commissioner Limtalco.
So if there, it's a change in policy, what is the existing policy and what is the current balance that potentially is gonna be written off? Did you say it was 1.8 million?
1.8 million.
So what kind of policy is that if we've let our uncollectible accounts go to 1.8 million? It doesn't sound like there is a policy.
I don't believe that we have anything in writing setting how we do this.
Whether it's not in whether it's in writing or not, what was the practice? Because it seems like 1.8, it should have taken us quite a bit of time to get to 1.8 million in uncollectible accounts. So what's the year? How far does it date back?
The 1.8 is associated with everything that goes beyond the statute of limitations. So if the last time we did it was when I first got here, 2016, so it's been about.
So we haven't written off anything in 4 years?
Right.
So at that time, it was late 16 or early 17, and went back 4 years.
But when we did it 4 years ago, it was brought to the commission, a number was presented, the commission acted and authorized the write-off, right?
Yeah.
So,
And I think the current CFO wants to be more proactive about doing this, and that's why this has been proposed.
And I'd like to add to that, that's exactly what my thinking is, based on my limited knowledge of accounting, is the fact that they shouldn't have to say, well, somebody comes in and says, hey, we haven't looked at this in a long time, let's look at it. And we look back 4 years and say, hey, we got to write off 1.8. It should be a constant thing that they're doing. So that's why the policy is good. I like the idea of tabling it. I know this is not time sensitive, it's not something we have to do today. So take it back and rewrite it, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, moving right along. Let's move along because I don't want the meeting to be too long. Resolution FY 19-2020.
This resolution is relative to approving increase in contract amount and authorizing change orders for CM services for our SCADA project for water and wastewater facilities. We are in the process of implementing SCADA, our Phase A1 project. We have a contractor in place. The deadline of contract completion for this was December 31st, 2019, and the contractor is late. We ran into trouble early on with this contractor and their performance, and we put them on notice. They came up with a plan to get back on track with the schedule, and as part of that, we included provisions to allow us to reduce their contract amount if they went beyond the schedule in order to cover the costs of
The
the CM. So
Construction management.
that's how we're moving forward with this contract. However, because the CM, the additional amounts that we're authorizing the CM bring the level of that contract amount above $1 million, we're seeking your approval so that we can properly spend the contract amount necessary by notification.
This is a court order project, right?
It's related
To
to
a
the court order,
Okay,
but it's not a direct.
okay.
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Move to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Mchalko. Commissioner Sanchez, you have a question?
Yeah, Miguel, I think the chairman alluded to this. This is the third change order since January.
Remember this?
I'm reading it on page, in the issues for decision, I don't know what it is.
Well, it's under page
Yes.
2 in the whereas.
Yes.
I apologize, I don't have my page counter. I'm looking at the actual discussion that the general manager prepares for it.
Yes, the
He
justification.
points
looking
out
at
that that it's a,
the original contract amount for the CM was about 515,000.
right.
When we did put the contractor on notice about his schedule, there was an additional change order, I think, that took it to when we thought it would be done. And the two subsequent ones were extensions for each month subsequent to that.
So this is our third month in a row we're extending this? Is it going to end?
This is the second month after the contract completion date that we're extending it. So we're
but this is-
close, but we need to,
So I'm looking at, this is on page 156, I believe, of board book. We approved a change order of $51,563 on January 2020, and we approved a change order of $46,681 on February of 2020. This is another $177,000 change order being approved in March of 2020.
and it's intended to cover the costs for March, April, and May of CM services. This is an authorized amount, but they're only billing us for the amounts that they actually are working on the CM for this.
So the change order for $383,000 done, Resolution 28, FY 2019, didn't take into account the CM change orders of January, February, now March? So we knew we knew what the change order would be for the contractor, but we're now doing monthly extensions of the CM contract for the contractor?
Yes, with deductions from the contractor's amount. So it's
This
not
is paid.
costing us any more. We're withholding payment to the contractor for his delayed work and using those funds to pay for.
So the contractor is paying for this $177,000?
Yes.
Okay, and then do you have an idea, are they gonna get it done so that you're not forced to come back to us every month?
Yeah, well, that's why this is for March, April, and May, so we're anticipating that by May we'll be complete.
Okay, and it's being paid for by the contractor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, okay.
Commissioner Chanco?
Yeah, Miguel answered my question,
Okay.
because that, if there is a clause in the contractors where they
We can go
have
after
the
them.
liquidated damages,
Sure.
then I don't have an issue with it.
Okay. Any further questions?
Nope.
Ready for the question?
Yes.
We moved and seconded this, right? This was
Yes.
moved. Okay. All those in favor, raise your right hand.
Aye.
Unanimous. Next order, Miguel. Next one.
Next is Resolution 20, FY 2020, and this is relative to approving change order number 7 for the Route 1 Asen Adelup Agatna sewer design contract with HDR. This is the work that's occurring along Route 1 on the gravity sewer line that is being rehabilitated. We have awarded and we're currently working on the first phase of this project. There were several change orders along the way to address expediting the design, for example, for a section that had collapsed and caused us kind of an emergency. That happened on 2 different occasions. So this current change order is to provide for additional services during construction for the remaining portion of that project, which has not been bid out yet, and also to make some design changes to the contract documents based on the lessons that we learned from the first phase of the project. This change order is for $214,000, and we're seeking full of this amount, which would bring their total authorized amount under the original contract, 1.9 million. The current construction work on the current phase is expected to be completed by July, and the additional phase that we need this design work to finalize the bid package and put out, that work is expected to be completed in December of 2021. And that'll complete the successful bid and construction of this last phase of the project will complete the work on that grounding line. Funded by SRF grant funds, and part of the reason for wanting to move this up, we've actually moved this up, is to take advantage of the CIPP mining contractors that are currently doing work on other parts of the island. We feel that we can obtain best pricing. We are able to revise the design package and get this out right away while they're still here, so that we avoid any mobilization costs for any off-island contractors that might want to bid. Take advantage of their presence here to get some good pricing on construction work.
Commissioner Sanchez.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve resolution number 20, FY 2020, relative to the approval of change order number 7 for the Route 1 Asan Adelup Pagaknya Sewer Design Contract with HDR Inc.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Cuthberts. Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question, Miguel. You said I got on page 163 of board books, that you're seeing two funding sources, SRF grant funds from US EPA and GWA bond funds. Any idea what the split is? How much the US EPA is paying for, and how much you might have to take from our bond funds out of that $1,994,000?
Most of that 1 million has already been paid for out of the SRF.
Okay.
I don't have a number for you for the split. I can
Next
get
time.
that number to you.
Next time. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? If there are no other questions on the motion, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Francis? Okay, unanimous. Miguel, next resolution.
Next resolution is number 21, FY 2020, and this is relative to approval of an amendment on our IDIQ contract for professional project management, construction management services. If you recall, we terminated our PMO contract, and to supplement our engineering capabilities, we issued several indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity professional services contracts, some for design, some for construction management, and some for project and utility consulting. And so this contract with this instant contract is with Brown and Caldwell. The original contract amount was $750,000. However, we do need some additional work under this contract, which would include the cost of service and rate design study that has been stipulated in our 5-year rate case, as well as a consulting engineer's report, which is required for the issuance of our 2020 bonds. Because of the delays in the rate case and therefore the engineer's report, there have been several revisions and updates that need to be made, and now also the effects of this amendment, which would change the task order amount for this. In addition, so there are 4 task orders that are listed. Task order 1 for the consulting engineer's report at $188,000. Task order 2 for the Route 4 rehabilitation project at $148,000. That's SEPA grant funded. Task order 3 for the Route 1 Asan Adelup Sewer rehab project, $109,000. That's EPA grant funded. And task order number 4 is for the Southern SSES project, $182,000. That's also EPA grant funded. So the intent is, with the resolution, would increase the contract to $1.2 million. Additional work on the consulting engineer's report of $86,000, and the proposal for the cost of service and rate design study at $458,000. So those additional 2 amounts will increase the total contract to
Resolve number 4 on page
1294485.
1294485 on the, on the resolution?
right.
That's the amount.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve, Commissioner Guthrie.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Sanchez. Commissioner Sanchez, you
Quick
have-
question, Miguel. The cost of service study that Brown and Caldwell will do, what's your timing on that? When do you think we'd actually see redesign analyses?
So based on the stipulation, we have to complete it before March.
A year from now, okay.
Yeah,
This year?
yeah, but.
Yeah.
This
so-
year or next year?
Next year.
Next year, okay.
And so we are, but because we have 7 studies that we need to do and try to integrate all of that so that we can submit something cohesive and integrated to the PUC, we're putting together a project management plan right now for that, a program management plan for that. And so we anticipate the deliverables will be staggered, so you may see something sooner than that.
Okay, great. But it's officially due to the CCU, then PUC by next March?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mchaka.
Miguel, regarding the award of the IDIQ, were there more than one awardees, or was it a multiple award, or was it just awarded to Brown and Caldwell?
No, there were multiple awardees for different contracts. So I think we did 2 civil structural design, and then we did program management, construction management, we had 2. So Brown and Caldwell, they're the most qualified to do the consulting engineers report, which they've done for us in our 2016 bond issuance, and also the cost of service study.
And you apply the award of the task orders based on additional bidding pricing?
No
or is
bidding,
it just-
because these are professional services, it's qualifications based, and then we negotiate. We ask for a proposal, we give them a task order scope of work, they give us a proposal, and we negotiate.
And you perform your due diligence on the pricing proposal based on industry standard and what you have received in the past from other
Yes.
companies? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? No other questions? Are you ready? All those in favor of resolution, what's the number?
21.
21, FY 2020, raise your hand, raise your right hand.
Aye.
Motion's unanimous. Thank you very much. That finishes off your motions, your resolutions. Do you have any update to your COVID, your operations first?
We do have, if the
Short?
CCU is interested, we do have a kind of a short presentation on our response to the novel coronavirus. As you can see on this slide, it starts with the timeline. On March 13th, there was a national emergency declared by the president. We, at that point, implemented travel restrictions and return to work policy for anybody on leave, and we suspended our disconnection for non-payment and restored previously disconnected accounts. On March 14th, the governor issued the executive order declaring a state of emergency, and on the 16th, government operations were shut down for 2 weeks, with only essential employees reporting to work. On the 16th, we implemented essential operations, and on the 23rd, as you are aware, the emergency was extended for another 2 weeks. Current status is we have essential employees that are staffing our operations, and that's stable. We don't have any suspected cases of COVID-19 within the workforce. We verified our supply chain for critical inventory for chemicals, for disinfection, and also for wastewater treatment. We anticipate that we may have additional expenses due to the emergency declaration, and we're monitoring our revenues and developing a cost containment plan. Even though most of the finance department is working remotely, we're still making steps towards the cost containment plan, and we've also are taking into consideration how that may affect our development of our documents and presentations with regard to the bond issuance. Our water and wastewater system operations continue with no interruption to our service. The remaining critical business operations continue with no mission critical interruptions, and that includes to billing, cash management and collections, procurement, and our meter changeouts. Externally, we've been coordinating with Homeland Security and the Office of Civil Defense. There was an initial activation, and then after that, GWA was asked to be on standby to respond on any direction from the EOC. We also took some advanced steps and put out a request to the Adjutant General. In the event that the National Guard was activated, we wanted to advise of any critical positions within GWA that would be, if they were activated, would hamper our operations. So we sent them a list of critical employees, and they agreed not to activate those employees, at least initially, and we're reviewing that situation. We started working on our continuity of operations planning for the COVID-19. As you know, our essential functions are to continue to supply potable water, continue collection, treatment, and disinfection and discharge of wastewater, and continue our critical water quality and laboratory testing. In addition to that, additional services that are necessary and essential for us are to maintain to repair line breaks and main breaks. We had 2 yesterday, so the guys are continuing to show up for work and perform those critical operations even into the late evening hours, and also to address and clean up SSOs in order to protect public health and safety. And along with that, our guys are showing up to keep our equipment running and operational. In addition, IT is keeping our systems running. We're maintaining adequate materials and supplies, and we're continuing to perform tasks critical to operations. And those employees report to duty, and those who cannot or aren't essential, aren't needed for field operations, but are needed to continue work, are doing it via teleworking and telecommuting. So we have set up options for our customers, and are both on the billing and account side with email accounts that they can still transact business with us without personal contact, and also on the construction and development side, engineering and permits is continuing their operations and processing clearances and building permit reviews via email. And we set up a document Dropbox for large files to be transmitted instead of bringing in plan sets to the office. So we continue to work on that. The essential employees will be reporting to work for the next 3 weeks. We have been providing our employees with daily updates before the end of each workday. We are constantly reinforcing recommended CDC practices, such as social distancing and hygiene, and we are increasing our compliance efforts to ensure that employees are using their PPE when they're at work. IT has been great at supporting telework. They've been working extra hours to make sure that if we need computers to be relocated to home, they're setting them up for that, including setting up VPN accounts and providing MiFi for essential employees who may not have adequate internet connection. And we've, as I mentioned earlier, identified critical employees that we need to be excluded from activation of National Guard duty. On the customer side, as I mentioned previously, we've immediately increased our promotion of pay by phone, use of the mobile app, and pay online services. We've created business process that transact business without face-to-face contact. I mentioned that. And just yesterday we opened up. We had the guys working over the weekend to reestablish the drive-up window at the Upper Tumon office that had been closed for many years. We cleared that out. They refurbished the drawer, got the interior set up with all the connections to establish a cashier station in there so we could accept customer payments. And the line has been wrapped around the parking lot, almost out to Marine Drive, I think, for the last 2 mornings. So we're getting a lot of traffic, making both GWA and GPA payments at the Upper Tumon location. Just to give you an idea of how the revenues have been affected, you can see on March 16th, our collections were below 100,000, and then we got 800,000 on the 17th. since then, it's been below 200,000, dropping over Saturday and Sunday to very low amounts. And then with the opening of the drive-through window, we climbed back up on Monday to a little above 200,000. So we're hoping to do everything we can to try and bring these numbers up and sustain our operations to provide safe drinking water and wastewater services for the island.
Commissioner Guthrie, do you have a
Yeah,
question?
but I guess this is kind of related. When this was all getting started, the virus issue, about 2 weeks ago, and I remember emailing you, Miguel, there was a fire along Cross Island Road. And report was made by Mr. Oscar Calvo to the fire department a number of times. Apparently there was a delayed response from the fire department. While he was waiting for the fire department, he and his neighbors used his water connections at his home, trying to put out the fire. And apparently he used a lot of water from his home to do that. When the fire department finally arrived, the fire hydrants were not working. And they had to go a long way away to find a working fire hydrant. Now, I recall that we took on an initiative, I guess it was last year, to repair fire hydrants, to make sure they were working, and we have sort of adopted the fire hydrants as our responsibility. So when I happened to run into Mr. Calvo after hearing this whole story on the radio, and I asked him about what happened, and he was very concerned about the response of the fire department, and then he was concerned about the fire hydrants not operating, and he asked me, as a member of the CCU, that he recalls that the CCU took over maintaining the hydrants, and that we collected a fee for that, basically. We're not charging our ratepayers anyway for that.
The fire department has never paid us since.
I know they don't pay us, but we're not.
We just adopted it.
So we just,
All ratepayers.
It's
Okay.
part of our base rate.
that's what I
Commissioner
thought,
Guthrie.
it is part of our base rate.
Yeah.
That's what he asked me. and I
Well, it's
said,
coming out of our base rate.
Okay, anyway, so what's the situation there? I mean, is someone like him who used his own water from his account to try to mitigate, to put the fire out, is he entitled to any reimbursement above the average water usage that he would be using at a particular month?
We certainly, if we download the log from his meter, we would certainly be able to see if there was a spike in usage. And we could calculate what amount that might be and correlate that to the time that the fire took place and
Yes.
the efforts.
And that's what I did in my
We'll leave it
email
up
to
to
you.
you.
I asked you to do that. I'd appreciate if maybe a future meeting, can you let us know about that?
Sure.
Because I
And just-
want to maintain public support for our maintenance of the fire hydrants.
And just to,
I'd like to know what happened.
Okay.
yeah, on that point, I did get a report from the distribution manager, and there, one hydrant that was not of the fire, there were 3 other hydrants that were properly working, so apparently there was just one, and I don't know if it has been repaired or replaced yet.
All right, well, just keep us posted. Thank you.
Commissioner Sanchez, you have a question?
Miguel, when he has a mic.
We did, for the hydrants, the testing, the fire department still has an obligation to test and maintain the hydrants, right? So I believe they do test them, and if you notice, the ones that are spray painted, when we put them in, they're nice and yellow. But the fire department will come back after that and test them, and then they'll spray green to indicate all hydrants that are working. So, and I don't know if they
spray red for the ones that aren't working.
right. But in terms of any other maintenance, I'll coordinate with our O&M manager to see if there's. I know that has regular conversations with them about recording the usage and using the meters. As you recall, we provided them with meters to record the flow, so we can account for that in our
Good,
water
good.
audit.
Okay.
The other thing, Miguel, is if I remember correctly, it's become part of our rate base. The PUC asked us to include it. They gave us a slight increase in our rate one time.
Yeah.
To do that, but we all realized that it wasn't enough money to do a total revamp of all our fire hydrants, because there's thousands of them. But maybe you should give us an update at another meeting
Yeah.
of your plans and how long this is going to take. Because I remember we had, we're replacing 17 meters for like over $1 million, because these are the dry barrel fire hydrants. So I don't need an explanation today. I'm just saying, at another meeting, next meeting maybe.
We'll
if
give you an
could
update of that contract.
Give us an update of that, because I want the public to understand that the fire hydrants are really by law, are still the responsibility of the fire department, but we stepped up because they hadn't done anything with them, and we had an amount due from them of over $8 million that we wrote off.
Speaking of write-offs.
So speaking of write-offs, that one sticks in my brain because it's a big number. And so, on a going forward basis, we've tried, we're going to update that and go out and fix that problem for our community, because we're one Guam. Okay? But maybe just gives us an update at a later date. Commissioner Sanchez.
And just, you alluded to it, Miguel, just find out, obviously something in the protocol between the fire department and us didn't work for that one fire hydrant. And it worked for the other 3 that were in the locale. So just, as you alluded to, you revisit with them, hey, how did we miss it, right? Because the last time, the worst thing is to find out between the 2 sides, we've missed a fire hydrant when we need it, right? And so, as you alluded to, just get with the fire department. Are they following their own internal protocol? They need to let us know if it doesn't have water, so we can get water to it. I'm sure we can respond, but they gotta help us a little bit, right? We don't check out every fire hydrant.
Right, yes, sir.
Thanks.
Okay. Commissioner Mchako, your question.
Miguel, regarding the last slide that you went over, the collections. So in that five days time frame, it looks like you have almost $1 million of uncollected cash flow. Is that correct?
Well, we're below target, yeah.
Okay.
So we get daily reports of what the targets are based on the budget that's been approved, and then how each day's revenue comes in. So, and then running total, so we can see where we are for the month. And so we're watching that. CFO is watching that carefully.
Okay, and do you foresee any issues with cash flow?
Well, absolutely. We know that we're gonna, just based on the projections that we've done so far with the best available data, we're looking at a potential impact of about 8.64% over the year to revenues. That's a projection, and we don't know how long this is going to last, but we've estimated impact to commercial 2, commercial 3, and hotel customers in terms of their demand. We've projected that residential customers will continue to, if not see it. We haven't adjusted it upward, but we think we might see an increase in their demand. But in terms of payment, we're going to work real hard to collect everything that we distribute and meter. But whether or not everybody will be able to pay, anticipate that we're going to have revenue issues, and we're trying to make that's reference to the cost containment plan to try and cut our expenses down.
Yeah, just before Commissioner Sanchez can ask the question, I just want to interject here that as Commissioner Sanchez stated earlier, the biggest customers are the hotels and those people. So just as they dropped in terms of usage of megawatts of energy, they are also going to be struggling to pay you, and they are the huge users of water. So that's this drop in your collection. There's some of these there's some of these big large hotels that have always been on a problem with you, but some of them now are going to fall into problem areas or maybe be a little slow in paying you. So I anticipate that that's part of the problem. On the water side, I think it's accentuated rather than on the power side. I think it's accentuated on the water side. Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, there may be 2 issues, Miguel. Thank you. You've already noticed it, but you're just going to have overall demand drop. Even if the hotel may have no trouble paying this bill because they have a very small water bill because they have no customers, right? But I'm glad that you've raised the issue, Miguel. Just, we should ask both companies to, at the next meeting, kind of project what they think their cash loss will be. We try to collect, looks like $500,000 a day, that's 15 million a month. We don't know how long this is gonna occur, but it's quite conceivable that both companies will be affected in the millions as consumers have trouble paying if they're not working, even if their demand is low. Even if their power bill is lower, with the PUC approving it, as we assume they will, their power bill will be lower, but they still may have trouble paying it. So we'll want both companies to to project as the months proceed how short they might be, and just so that we become aware of it. I'm sure you worry about it, as many companies do. But I was happy to see that just opening that drive-through, you got 250 customers actually drove in wanting to pay their bill, paid their bill, and your cash flow jumped up. So that was a great example of making it easier for people to pay. People took advantage of it. Let's hopefully it'll play out. But we know this may get worse before it gets better, just because it's a very difficult time on an income basis for our ratepayers to afford even rate reductions.
Okay, Commissioner.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, on the drive-through, what are the mitigations that have been taken to reduce the potential for exposure between the customer service rep, the receiving of the payment and the delivery back from the receipt or whatever it is? Because I did get an email about that. Someone was very upset about that. He said that in his email to me, that is overexposure to individuals. So I said I would ask.
So the employees have been staffed such that they are able to rotate for frequent hand washing, hygiene, and to take the requisite breaks. Also provided them with PPE, and so they have gloves and masks that they are able to use. That sanitizer is there and available for them. That's as much as we can do to limit the exposure, protect the employees.
And they clean the drawer regularly?
Absolutely.
And there's a glass in between them and the customer. So
Thank you.
this is no
Just for
different
the
than
record.
any drive-through at any of our fast food restaurants, which are still operating.
Yeah, same thing.
The same thing.
Handing money and credit card
Yeah.
back
Yeah,
to each other.
yeah.
Yeah.
Very good, Mr. Chairman.
Is that it? Okay, sir. I just also, I made a comment when GPA was done. I want to make the same comment that our GPA, GWA people are so good at what they do, and you do your job. You are essential for the community. Yeah, everybody is essential, but you really are essential. I mean, you talk about hand washing and hygiene. This is no water, no hygiene. So I want to commend you and your staff.
And, Mr. Chairman, just for the record, John Beneventi mentioned in his part of the meeting that he would be extending the March 31st restriction against cutoffs because the governor just extended the
2 weeks.
The ship and the ship, right, staying in place. For the record, will you also be extending the cutoff beyond March 31st now that the stay in place is extended to April?
Yes.
I'll get that on the record, so
Yeah.
you can put that out to customers.
And we rely on both you general managers. This is operational, so we leave this up with you. And I think you're both doing good jobs, so.
If there's no other further business, I'd like to adjourn the meeting.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Very good, everybody. Good job, Miguel.